Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fire Safe Sonoma Speaker Series. This is a program we do every month. We do this on the fourth Thursday of the month between 2 and 3. So welcome. Thanks for joining. We live stream this program, and we also put it on our YouTube channel. Let me rephrase that. We live stream this to our YouTube channel. And so we have this up on our YouTube channel. So if you know anybody who might be interested in the content, point them to Fire Safe Sonoma's YouTube channel. We'll drop that in the chat. And they can view this even though they're not here to participate live with all of us enjoying the time together. Again, with that said, you can find our past speaker series programs on our YouTube channel. It's a lot of great content out there. We've been doing this, I think, for 5 years now. So very rarely do we duplicate presenters or presentations. Oh, by the way, I'm Roberta McIntyre. I'm the president and CEO of Fire Safe Sonoma, and I'm the host today. For those who might not know, Fire Safe Sonoma is we are the countywide Fire Safe Council, and we've been Fire Safe Sonoma's been working in the space for 26 years now. So we've been doing a lot of this wildland fire safety and risk reduction work, actually since before it was popular, as I like to say. And we have a good website. If you haven't seen our website, you can go there, check out a lot of stuff we have there. Yeah, 26 years we've been doing this. Before we get started, I want to thank Team Fire Safe Sonoma today for helping out with us today is Becca Fisher. She's a past fellow who is now our program administrator. And also helping us out today is a couple of our California Climate Action Corps fellows, Aiden Dijon, I always do that wrong, and Alina Brammer. So thank you guys for helping out. And don't forget to check out the Fire Safe Sonoma calendar. That's on our website as well. We put upcoming events that we're aware of there. If y'all have an event coming up, send it over to us and we'll put it on our calendar as long as it's related to wildland fire safety and risk reduction. If you're doing like a live concert or something like that, that's not consistent with our nonprofit's mission, we probably won't put that on our shared calendar. If you've got like a work party weekend day and you want folks to come out and help to do some defensible space, things like that, you can find those on our community calendar. Also, you can, if you're wanting to book our tool trailer, you can look on our community calendar and see if it's already booked. That's a good place to start if you're wanting to use that resource. And don't forget these upcoming events, speaking of our calendar, starting off with the Pengrove Parade taking place on Sunday, July 6th at 11 in Pengrove Park. Look out for the Fire Safe Sonoma Defensible Space model on our trailer in the lineup. I will call it a float, call it what you want. We're always delighted to see familiar faces show up to these events. We were in the Petaluma Butter and Eggs Parade not too long ago. And Fire Safe Sonoma Ready, Set, Go presentation will be held on July 12th at the Sonoma County Community Center in downtown Sonoma. The California Climate Action Corps fellow-led event will cover Ready, Set, Go basics for renters and coping with climate anxiety. Every time I think about that, I get a little emotional. Be sure to stick around after the event for complimentary dinner provided by the community center staff. Please RSVP while there's still room, and we'll put the link to that RSVP in the chat. If you're feeling a need to pull some invasive weeds or want to network around wildfire preparedness and mitigation, come to our next volunteer event on Friday, July 18th. The invasive species removal event will focus on the Copeland Creek area within Sonoma State University campus. So sign up with the link in the chat. And as a reminder, the Fire Safe Sonoma board meetings are held on the fourth Monday of each month. These meetings are public and available in the public calendar on our website. They start at 3:30. Closed session is 3 to 3:30, and then we open it up for open session at 3:30. Sometimes we're a little late coming back from closed session, so if you get there at 3:30, you may have to wait a few minutes before we come out of closed session for those meetings. And to stay in the loop, you can always subscribe to our updates if you're not getting those already. If you're on our list of updates, or if you're on our listserv for getting our updates. We try to do a weekly update to let you know what's going on. If we learn of any grant projects or things like that, try to plug them in and add them to our weekly updates. We were doing a lot of updates through the week, but that felt like we were kind of overwhelming folks. So we do basically one update a week, and we talk everything into that one update that we think y'all might be interested in. All right, so last month we heard from Ben Nichols, who shared the CAL FIRE seasonal outlook. If you didn't see it, check it out on our website. We try to coordinate at least one speaker series segment every year dedicated to the CAL FIRE seasonal outlook to allow our local fire professionals a chance to review the current fire science data and explore predictions for the coming fire season. The presentation and previous seasonal outlooks are available again on our YouTube channel, so check it out. Now to the brass tacks. This month, we're pleased to be joined by a local FireWise leader from the Oakmont community, Iris Harrell, who will share her journey on how to be better prepared for receiving home insurance renewal, as well as making your home safer for the next wildfire disaster. Iris has had a diverse career as a history and English teacher. I did not know that. In the South and on the Navajo Reservation. This is better and better. I didn't read the bio before I started. A touring musician, and for 35 years, a general contractor in Dallas and Silicon Valley. I knew that part. She sold her company, Harrell Design+Build, to her employees through a ESOP in 2015. I don't know what that is, but that's okay.
Employee owned.
Employee, okay. It is now among the top 20 privately owned design build firms in the US. Very cool. Since moving to Santa Rosa in 2016 and evacuating 3 times, she's led wildfire preparedness efforts in Oakmont as chair of the FireWise Task Force with Fire Safe Sonoma support. Oh, thank you. She and her team provided free home hardening assessments to residents, helping make Oakmont a FireWise USA leader in Sonoma County. And a lot of people, I'm going to toss this in, a lot of people don't realize that actually, I think Oakmont, the community of Oakmont is one of the, if not the, it's one of the very first FireWise communities established in the county of Sonoma. So that's a little bit of trivia that I think is pretty cool. After her long home insurance renewal in 2024, Iris now educates homeowners on how to reduce wildfire risk and meet insurance criteria, sharing her own experience as a case study in resilience and preparation. So I'm going to give Iris a warm welcome. I hope you all will too. And I'm going to go dark until she's finished with her presentation. So we'll see all you guys on the flip side for the Q&A. All right, Iris, take it away.
Thank you, Roberta. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm really grateful to Fire Safe Sonoma for letting me share my personal story, because I realize I'm one of many that this is happening to. And my title is Worried About Homeowners Insurance. You should be, because if you got it, and without question, that doesn't mean you're safe 12 months from now, and things are moving very fast in the insurance industry. So I wanted to share my personal story, and my hope is by doing that, it'll help you understand kind of what you may need to be preparing for, and that the requirements are changing, and they're moving very fast to being much more stringent than we're used to. After all, we're in a new century now, and that's kind of a shock to all of us, particularly ones like me with gray hair. So I was very shocked to get last August, well, actually I had my insurance agent I'd had for like 25 years, State Farm, and he called me 5 months in advance that our house was not going to be, we were not going to receive insurance renewal. And first of all, I was not only shocked, I was embarrassed. I mean, I'm head of the FireWise Task Force here in Oakmont. I've done more than most people for mitigation. And he tried to take the sting out by telling me, he said, look, your house is the most protected one in my whole portfolio. This is a corporate decision from the top down, and they're particularly going after bigger homes where they have to pay out more if those get burned, and yours is a bigger home. My neighbors next door to me were getting State Farm, but the corporate decision date did not hit them until the following year, 2025. And so they knew that they were going to be scrambling because of this. And then State Farm, of course, is not the only one. It's very, very hard to get insurance renewal now. So my first step was that I did panic and, felt a little personally, took it a little personally. And then I picked myself up and I got over it. And by the way, you are required to get 75 days required notice when they are not going to renew. But there's one company, AAA, that has been giving people a year's notice recently here in Oakmont, several of them, where they say if you pass a certain certification, we will guarantee that you will get renewed next year. But the implication is if you don't, you will not get renewed. So at least it's giving people time. They are giving people time to do something. Usually my wife, Ann, handles insurance, and the only question she ever asked me in the past, we've been together for decades, she asked for the replacement value of the home. If the house burns down, how much should we have our policy be for? And she asked me that because of my contractor background. But I was dropped into the land of finding insurance because she knew there were going to be technical questions that she didn't know. So the good news is we did get renewed, but it was a little scary. I did a lot of research. If the next slide you'll see, I looked for Firewise experts. If you could turn to the next slide, who's running the slides? I worked with friends, calling them. I had other homeowners. I did some online research, and I talked with multiple brokers and insurance agencies just trying to get insurance. And finally, I got a broker and a large San Francisco firm in April. And I had hope. So on the next slide, you'll see a little setback that I had. I call it a relapse. So my 5 months were dwindling down and waiting is really hard. And so I sent the broker my photos and answered a lot of questionnaires. I was all queued up at her office and ready to send it out. But she said, here's the hitch. The brokers cannot send out a request for insurance until 30 days before expiration. And that's scary to know that what if it doesn't go well? And so around that time, my old insurance agent called me back with such a deal. He said, oh, you can get on the FAIR plan. We can help you get on the FAIR plan and do a wraparound policy because the FAIR plan only covers fire and not other stuff. And so the temptation was, okay, do I take the bird in the hand or do I take a bird in the bush? Because I didn't know the broker I was working with, but I did feel confident about their competence. They've been doing it for 30 years. So I kind of hesitated and I called the broker back and I said, I'm going to go ahead and sign up with something I know I can get. But I didn't really want to join the FAIR plan, California FAIR plan, because it's oversubscribed, it's limited. And she reassured me, she said, look, I have 30 years of experience. I have 12 assistants. I know your house because you sent me all the pictures. And I promise you, I can find you 3 offers. So don't lose sleep anymore. I told her I was losing sleep. And so I finally did just turn it over to her and came out with really good results. You'll see on the next slide that the broker, I did get a resolution and the broker got me 3 bids. We threw one of them out because they weren't nearly as good as the other 2. So with the 2 good offers, what I looked at and what I recommend you look at when this comes up on your plate is how much value are you going to try to, have your house estimated for that would need to be replaced. You need a monetary amount. And I suggest that you get the maximum amount that they will offer you because you're going to have to fight for every single dime of that and you won't get 100% of it. It just won't happen. I haven't heard of anybody who got 100%. And they were lawyers, so they even knew how to work with lawyers. So it's very important not to undervalue your home. And the square foot price is only one thing that you think about. There are other things you have to consider. Are you on a hillside? Are there other difficulties about dealing with your particular home and property? The other thing you want to look at is in this insurance policy, how much more are they going to give you? So let's say if your house were $1 million in value, just for simple math, and your personal property, which means everything, if you turn the house upside down, it falls out, that's your personal property. So one company gave us a 50% in addition to the value of the house, and the other one only gave 25%. This is important detail. The other thing, the building ordinance, like they will give you extra money over the value of your home, but how much extra will they give you? Will it be 50% or 10%? Of course, the one with 50% looked great. And then there's usually a line for water damage from a backup of systems. One of the one that we chose had 2.5 times more money offered for water damage should that happen. And then on a bigger house, if you have a house bigger than probably 3,000 square feet, they're going to have additional requirements. For instance, in our situation, we were required to get a monitored alarm for theft and fire, which wasn't that much, and it worked out fine. So of course we chose the one that had all of these better percentages, but these are things you should be looking at. The other thing that was required is the better company said if you have to be a Firewise USA community, and fortunately we were. So that was really, really important. And not only did we have it, they give you a percentage discount. I think we got up to 10% discount for being a Firewise US community. So think about the insurance company. They're trying to figure out, are they going to lose money if they offer this? And if you're in a Firewise USA community, that means that not just you, but other places and people in the community are doing something about the Firewise situation. So it's a safer bet for them. And just so you know, if your community is not a Firewise USA community, I highly recommend that you start making that happen. There are requirements. You have to have someone reporting hours and dollars and training for whatever is happening to make your your community more fire safe. And it has to be maintained yearly, and you have to have a year-long plan, and a 3-year plan, and every so often a 5-year plan. So it's a really important thing to try to do. Of the two offers that we got, we chose the one that was $1,000 less, but it required that monitored alarm that I talked to you about, and that was $3,500. But the best deal that the broker got for us that really brought the overall price down was we also have earthquake insurance. And I'm as a contractor, really aware what can happen to homes when an earthquake happens. Being from Silicon Valley and all of us experiencing earthquakes here. There was another earthquake policy that she got that was like 1/3 the cost of the one that most people sign up for. So that put us in for the same amount of value, that put us in a much better situation financially. And that's the advantage of having a broker. So the final outcome of the cost really, we got $1,600 in credits, and with a lower earthquake insurance policy, we saved actually about $400. So we didn't really end up paying more, which most people are going to be paying more, and you need to prepare yourself for that too. That's why I have the next slide, which says, why do we have a home insurance crisis in California nationwide? And California particularly made a deal with there was one of the issues about California is they always have these propositions coming up, initiated from residents in the state, and it always sounds good, but it usually can have some very negative effects. There was a deal making going on from 1960, and then finally a proposition came up from consumer watchdogs in 1988, Prop 103, and there was an Insurance Reduction Reform Act. It sounds so good. I'm going to reduce your insurance cost. Well, that sounds wonderful until we get to the point where we're at now, where the insurance companies have lost so much money. And that act, what it did is only allowed insurance companies to raise their percentage rates 3% a year, no matter what happened, no matter how many disasters they were. And that's what brought us to the point in the last 10 years about the insurance companies going broke. And they are a business, and if they can't make money, they can't exist. So that's just the cost of doing business. You have to make money. The one thing that California did not allow that was such a big issue for the insurance companies is what's called catastrophic modeling and historical data to analyze price increases. And no matter what they analyzed, they would only be allowed to raise it 3%. And that wasn't fair to the insurance companies. So that's why they started backing out and just say, okay, we're not going to give in California any more policies. Well, now they got back to the negotiating table, and they are allowed to raise their prices, and of course they are. So another slide, the next one you'll see is my personal. I think, yeah, you might have jumped one. There's one back from there. How did we get here? Let's see. Okay. All right. So since 2017, there have been 10 million forest acres and 39,000 homes destroyed in California just due to wildfires. And that was before the LA fire. So, in summary, Northern California accounts for more than 90% of the $70 billion in losses until the LA fire happened. So now there's going to be a star in Los Angeles. So the next one that shows the three doors, the next slide, is kind of shows you what you're going to be faced with when your policy is threatened not to be renewed and you have to go out looking. And I do recommend that you get a broker, because a broker is going to go out to the market and find out what policies are available based on pictures from your home and information from your home that they think they can get. Because if you just call one company like Farmers or Allstate, they can only give you Farmers or Allstate, and they all have their individual rules about who they're going to accept. And they also have a limit on how many new policies they can bring into their business on a monthly basis. So that's an important thing for you to know. So the three doors when you get denied that you have are to choose from. I could not go through the blue door that you see, because that's what they call admitted and preferred insurers who made the deal with California not to go more than 3%, that are no longer giving policies, or very rarely. So I couldn't go through the admitted door. And I think their naming of the non-admitted as not preferred is kind of an unfair issue in terms of the names. It's not a good not a good look. But when you think about, I don't know if you've ever heard of Lloyd's of London, they're probably the most premier insurance company in the world, and they're not in the blue door preferred group because they refuse to accept that they're only going to raise their rates 3% no matter what happens. The red door, the wraparound policy, is for those people who get stuck on the FAIR plan. And if you think about the FAIR plan, every house in California that has the worst possible conditions so that a fire could more easily happen for them is going to have to go through the red door, because nobody else is giving them policies. And if you have to go with the FAIR plan, you have to get an additional policy, which is called a wraparound, or they call it DIC in insurance terms, which is difference in conditions. You have to have two policies essentially. And what I don't like about that, besides the fact that FAIR plan is overprescribed, is that the wraparound policies, most of the insurance companies like State Farm, Farmers, Allstate, they're not used to writing wraparound policies, and they may forget something. I think there was one that forgot to have them, a client put their put the insurance that they got in the trust as opposed to individual names. And there was a threat they were not going to get paid because the name was wrong. So these are small details, but they're legal documents. So you want to be really, really careful with that. And one of the reasons I like the non-admitted, that if you're going to go with a non-admitted, you need to go with companies that have an A plus or an A financial rating. All of these companies have financial ratings. For instance, State Farm has been brought down to B because of they're overextended in terms of how much they have to pay for all of the things that have happened here in California because they have so many policies here. The one that I got is from the Midwest, um, and it's not admitted, but it had an A plus financial rating. And it was the one that required us to be in a Firewise USA community. So they're covering their butts by, making sure they're getting homes where people are conscious and doing something about the mitigation to prevent wildfire. And so they're safer in offering policies, and they're not overextended because they don't have that many policies in the state of California. And just so you'll be aware that the FAIR plan, which is where you get the red door wraparound policy to go with it, only covers smoke, fire, lightning, internal explosion. There's a lot of other things that can happen that insurance policies normally cover. So on the next slide, you'll see that before your next home insurance renewal is due, I wanted to give you some personal advice. First of all, you need to know that the insurance requirements are changing as we sit here and talk, but they're moving rapidly in the direction of IBHS, which is the Institute for Business and Home Safety. So who pays for the Institute for Business and Home Safety? It's a nonprofit. The insurance companies pay for this. They pay for their existence, and they're doing that because they want to know what do they need to require of their homeowners so that it's worth insuring them. And so because they're reducing their risk. So IBHS has just in the last year or two created a certification called Wildfire Safe Home. And Wildfire Safe Home is a very high standard. Even my house cannot meet it. I'm close, but it's frustrating. And I did get insurance, and I did have an on-site inspection from the insurance company, but it's a very high standard. But a lot of insurance companies are moving to that because scientifically they know that this is where they're going to be able to really help ensure themselves that that house is probably not going to burn down or at least be damaged as badly if they didn't do something. So we actually have had the Steve Hawks from IBHS come out to Oakmont and give our residents a talk. And we've had other speakers who are very high up in the fire world in terms of prevention. And the main issue is that embers are the leading cause of home ignitions. A lot of people imagine, oh my gosh, the flames are going to come here. You may never see the flames until an ember gets into your house through one of those vents you didn't change to make a smaller hole. And then it slowly burns the house from the inside. And the whole house could burn down, and the plants could still be there on the outside. So a lot of people say, well, why are we concerned about the plants? Because the plants can also burn, and they could cause the house to bring the flames to your house. So on the next slide, you'll see this not only IBHS, but also California, the Safer from Wildfires laws that there are regulations that they're putting together and still not quite finalized. Even PG&E, if you look at this picture on the right, where it's this is from a PG&E ad, full page in the Press Democrat for, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks in a row. Do you see any plants around that 5-foot zone of the house? No, absolutely none. And that is where the movement is going for almost all of the insurance companies. Because that is the safest thing. One of the safest things you can do is that they're calling it zone 0. It's been referred to as 0 to 5. And it's critical. It is critical. And it's going to be you are not have the option. And if you're angry about this, I did want to suggest you think about this. In the 1950s, and since forever, I guess, the standard was you build a house, you pay for a window, then you put a plant right against the house to grow up in front of that window. That does not make sense. If you took that plant and put it 5 feet out, you would still have privacy. You would be able to see that plant and it wouldn't possibly burn your house down. So we have been following rules and ideas and design, things that don't serve us anymore. And this is not just California. This is throughout the country. I mean, Canada is having wildfires all over the place. And you think of that place as, completely safe. How could that possibly happen? But it's happening everywhere. Okay, so the basic home hardening issues that you really need to address, because it's going to come to you at some point. I think this is going to be a very difficult year for getting home renewals, home insurance renewals. Your roof is one of the first things they're going to look at. The 5-foot zone, nothing combustible, and the vents being changed so the embers can't get inside your house, and the gutters. Those are just basic that need to be done. So there's only one home in Oakmont, by the way, out of 3,200 homes that has passed the IBHS standard, the basic standard certification. So why is the 5-foot zone so important? People just say, well, what's the big deal? And people have seen pictures, well, this house burned down, but the plants didn't. So why do we have to worry about the plants? You don't know what the circumstances are of that fire. And the science that has been studied, actually IBHS has this huge warehouse in South Carolina, and they build little houses right next to each other, one following their guidelines and one not, and they can burn the house on the right down in 30 minutes, and the other one doesn't get burned. So there is a science to this. But if you think in terms of baseball and you're trying to win the game and you're up for bat, if you don't take care of the 0 to 5, it's like having your opponent be on the third base, just waiting for you to make a slight error and run home and make a home run. That's the way the statistics is translated into baseball. So for those out there who are athletes and like that kind of stuff, I just wanted to share that with you. Okay. So the next slide one is really showing the difference between non-combustible versus non-flammable. And non-flammable is better than wood, but non-flammable will only take half the heat that non-combustible. I mean, metal can melt too. But as a matter of fact, the 2 houses that burned down in Oakmont in 2017, as a retired contractor, I was asked to be their consultant to get it rebuilt. And they had new appliances in boxes sitting on their property. And when I went to the property, there was absolutely nothing there but dust. So it was so hot. It was right up against Annandale Forest, which is where the fire was coming from. So non-combustible can take twice as much heat as non-flammable. And you want to be able to take the heat and let the fire pass through without pulling everything down. So what IBHS is saying, and PG&E and CAL FIRE, they're saying nothing flammable in the 0 to 5. So, for instance, decks out of AZEC and Trex are better than wood, and they are non-flammable in a Class A or a Class B. Class A is the best, but the very best, and what will often be required on anything but deck boards, is going to be non-combustible. And that means metal or concrete, or hardy siding is made out of concrete. So I have a picture here to show you that one of the things that IBHS is requiring, and a lot of the insurance companies are following this lead, is that if you have wood siding, and almost many of the homes that were built, unless it was in the last 5 years or so, are built with wood siding, horizontal or T111 plywood, which you see on the right picture, which is my home. But they want, when the ground comes or the rock comes or the deck comes out horizontally, they want 6 inches above to be non-combustible, which means no wood. So there are different ways you can tackle that. You can actually put a metal, just a thin layer of a sheet metal over that bottom piece and paint it so it just looks like the wood piece above it. Or in my case, on the right picture, I used a hardy board siding that was a straight 1/4 inch thick. And the reason there's a metal L shape on top of that is those grooves in the T111 vertical siding. The problem with that is if you don't have that metal L that kind of slices into this siding, the embers will get down in between those grooves. So, and then you'll notice that the corner, as the picture on the right turns the corner, there are dark brown pieces, and those are the trim pieces. And it's interesting to me that IBHS does not require you to change the bottom 6 inches of the trim piece, which makes no sense to me. And we changed those and we made it look like architectural detail. It's a plinth block. It's a little thicker. You don't want to have an 8-foot board and then it's 6 inches, you have a seam. But if it's a thicker board, it looks like it was an architectural detail instead of a mistake. So that's what almost all the insurance companies that I see right now in Oakmont are requiring for renewal. If you go to the next one. Now, a lot of people, well, where does the 5-foot zone start? You think, well, actually, there is no legal definition of 0 to 5 yet. So different companies are interpreting it different ways, but most of them are leaning to the house siding on the wall of the house is typically where the 5-foot zone starts. However, if your eave that projects beyond the wall is more than 24 inches, they're going to take that the 5-foot zone starts at the edge of your eave, the projection part above that your roof is on. So that's something you should be aware of. And the next slide will show you another variation of the 5-foot zone, because if you have a wood deck attached to it, you see the bubble drawing goes out. Now your 5-foot zone is from the wooden deck, and you have to be 5 foot clear of that. Whereas if you look at the one on the right, it shows where the green area of the deck, that portion is non-combustible. Therefore, your 5-foot zone is not violated. But that's very hard to do as a builder, to make just that short section like that. So if you go to the next slide, there's another variation that I wanted to show. I'm sure somebody's going to push that button. Yeah, there you go. The trellises. Trellises are also kind of like a deck, and they project out. And if they're wood, then that means you are going to start the 5-foot zone from the edge of that. Well, that was a real shock to me. And I'm a previous designer as well as a contractor, and I was not going to take my trellises down. So what could I do to make them non-combustible? And I want to share with you what I did, because it's kind of creative, and that a lot of people are going to want to try to save their trellises. So if you see those red posts on the right, those are that's towards my front door. So those are metal wrapped. Because I asked an IBH specialist who came to speak at Oakmont to come to my house and show me what I could do. So if I could make this trellis non-combustible, it was okay to keep it. So the upper portion of these trellises, both on the left and the right, the big beams are wrapped with hardy siding, flat 1/4 inch hardy siding, and hardy siding is non-combustible. And the ends of them are also. But the 2x4s on top, I mean, you don't want to pay to wrap 2x4s. That's labor intensive and kind of ridiculous. So what we did, I had a handyman. I said, what can you do to save money and this be non-combustible? He said, well, why don't we buy downspouts, metal downspouts, and just put caps on them and paint them, just because you can buy downspouts that are smooth. They don't have the little wrinkle in the metal. And nobody can tell from looking at my place when they come there that the 2x4s are metal downspouts with caps. So it is a non-combustible trellis, which brings my 5-foot marker back to the wall siding because I have that 6-inch piece of hardy siding horizontally at the bottom. So I'm just sharing this in case there are other people out there who are looking for ways to keep part of their architectural design, but also make sure they get their home insurance renewed without having to tear things down. So the next slide, I wanted you to start anticipating. I know I sound like the Grim Reaper, but I want you to anticipate the cancellation of your current policy if you haven't had that happen. You need to get a reliable broker who's really experienced and has access to the entire market. And you can research non-admitted versus admitted versus wraparound, what your choices might be. Again, we should not be afraid of non-admitted as long as they have a really high financial rating, like the one that I got. And I think you need to increase your home insurance budget over time because it's going to come in higher. California has lifted the gate for them to allow to charge more. They need to stay in business, or none of us are going to get insurance. And there's going to be higher costs because there's also, you're going to have to do more to your house. You're going to have to do more mitigation. And if you wait, it's not going to help because the costs will just keep going up. And I wanted to remind us all that if you have a home mortgage, you cannot buy a house or sell a house or be paid back to rebuild without home insurance. So the bottom line is you're doing this to save your home. I just feel like people are complaining about the insurance cost going up. But I have a quote from a woman in Oakland who said, before you worry about your insurance cost premiums, you need to worry about not getting insurance and getting a non-renewal notice. That's the worst thing that can happen. So if you look on the next slide, I have here, if you need to shop for a new policy, it feels like you're getting into the dating game. And probably many of us haven't been dating in a long time. But so you've got to kind of look better than your neighbors. I mean, have you done more than your neighbors so that they would give you insurance versus your neighbor? I mean, think like a burglar. Am I going to break into this house or that house? Does your home look better than the other homes in your neighborhood? That's good for you. Then I think you need to remember that insurance companies have a limit as to how many new policies they can accept, new clients they can accept each month. So you don't want to be the one that's left behind. This slide on the right-hand side shows preparing for your wildfire risk consultation. And they call it a consultation, but it's really an inspection to see if everything you've turned in is accurate and if they see anything else that you need to have done. They do give you a list of things to be thinking about and preparing for, but it's not as detailed as you'd probably like. So on the next slide, I just wanted to remind you not to get discouraged and not to panic. There are plenty of people out here that can help you. Be proactive and start doing something about this. The other thing is don't get too attached to your agent that you've been with 30 or 40 years. I mean, they're not your boyfriend or your girlfriend. That's a business transaction. And if you're not getting the best that you can get to protect your home, you need to move on. And don't keep your head in the sand about this. This can really happen to you, and your home is worth saving. And as Michelle Obama said, you know this is important, so do something. That's the end of my presentation. Are there any questions out there I should be answering?
Yeah, I do have some questions, so I'll field some questions.
Can I have my face on the screen? So the thank you.
Yeah, and go ahead and stop the presentation. There was Aline, I think you're running the presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to toss some questions. We do have like a little less than 15 minutes left, so we'll get through them. First of all, Iris, I want to tell you, total amazing presentation.
Thank you.
And so I'm glad to see that. And I need to be looking at the correct camera. Yeah, but I do have some questions I'm going to toss out to you that came in. Questions and comments, actually. Some of the comments are pretty cool. So somebody wrote one challenge that was encountered is the house replacement cost, i.e. cost per square foot. So the question tossed to you from your experiences, what guideline would you recommend?
Per
Uh,
square foot cost?
yeah,
Okay.
and it follows to say, they mentioned the challenge since his or her insurance company has been reluctant to suggest a cost per square foot. And
Yeah.
it's understood the potential liability issue for the insurance company. So,
Right, that's true because I know that State Farm just got sued because several people were saying that they were underinsured at the advice of the insurance company that this is sufficient. There have been some crazy numbers out there, and when I'm speaking crazy, I mean crazy low. $300 a square foot, didn't buy a house in 15 years ago, 20 years ago. $500 or $600 a square foot just for the house now. We're not talking about for other stuff that is related that you have to do on a burn, that landscaping, etc. $600 was being used in the 2017 fire. Now it's 2025. We have tariffs. We have a shortage of materials. We have labor costs that have gone up. We have a shortage of labor, which also makes the labor costs go up. And so I think it's $600 would be the bottom line that I would use, and I still think that's not enough. I've read other people, it can vary anywhere from 600 to 1,000, and it can go over that, depending on, I mean, I'm a designer and I know how you can pick details that cost twice as much without you thinking about it because you don't know the difference. Um, People who ask for like there's just some. For instance, I have clients, I could build a bathroom in an old house cheaper if I could just build a little shed outside and the stuff around there to get that bathroom in place. And so it depends on the job, but I I just think it's much higher than people expect.
yeah, my gosh. I was actually going to build a little spec house here recently before the tariffs, but I decided to wait and see. I had my eye on a small parcel near me, and yeah, there's right now. I don't think you could build a house. I think it's cheaper to buy a house than it is
Yeah,
to even be an owner
yeah,
builder right now.
that's true. That's
I
true.
couldn't build it myself for what I could buy a house for right now.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Jim Casper writes regarding insurance to your point about current costs in California. He's seen bank rate info in California insurance. Oh,
You
and
see what?
California is about the 18th lowest among all 50 states, plus DC and about 70% of national
Who,
average.
who, who
Jim Casper put that in the chat with a
what
link.
what's the lowest?
I
Okay.
don't know if he said the lowest, but California is the 18th lowest. Uh,
Mhm.
and let me go on.
I did want to point out that in terms of non-renewal rates, just so you think it's not just happening in California, the uh, the worst state for non-renewals is Florida, then Louisiana, then North Carolina, then California. So of course, a lot of theirs is from flooding,
Right.
but it's the same thing. Insurance companies have to pay out. So California is not the worst, just FYI.
Yeah, I remember seeing that in your slide earlier. That caught my eye. Also, this is driven mostly, I think, by climate change.
Yes, of
If
course, of
anybody that
course.
doesn't think that's real, I think I don't know what to say. But
Yeah,
the not only is the data there, but the real experiences, lived experience, are
yeah,
showing this.
yeah. Well,
Marilyn, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
well, it's such a shock, actually. Particularly, a lot of homeowners are over 55, and we grew up in a different century.
Yeah,
And 21st century is coming on hard and fast. There was the pandemic, there's the computers, there's climate change.
AI. Yeah,
And so if there's one that they want to ignore, it's usually, well, the climate change until something hits them, where they can't rebuild their house.
yeah,
And
and I wonder sometimes it's as humans, we tend to live in a world of denial. It's like, that's not going to
Yeah,
happen to me.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
yeah. So Marilyn from West Contra Costa Fire Safe Council, I had a little historical tidbit that I'm embarrassed to say I did not know because I'm pretty decent when it comes to fire prevention history. Uh, she said older landscaping practices pre-1700s often included no flammables around houses because of fires. So you had
Really?
cobble, bare
Oh,
dirt, gravel, um, particularly in Europe and Latin America, it looks like.
that makes sense because in American history, it was Benjamin Franklin, who
Started the
actually
first insurance
started
company.
fire
Yeah.
trucks for the communities because all the stuff, everything was built out of wood, and they were having
Yeah.
fires all the time. So that's a very good point. Maybe we should go back to the 1700s.
Right. And then Jim Casper wrote, Zone Zero has some advantages, easier to maintain the outside of the structure, to paint, repaint, wash windows,
Mhm.
minimizes the pests. That's
Yeah.
true.
Well,
There
it
are a
helps
lot
the
of
firefighters. It
good
helps the
reasons
firefighters.
besides fire safety to do that, 0 to 5.
Yeah, well, the big fear that people have is my place is going to look like a prison or a war zone, and I did I do feel like we have a tour once a year of homes here that have gotten more into line with the new firewise regulations, and they look good. But it's a different way of thinking. I mean, even landscape designers are scratching their heads. But there are ways to do it, and people have already gotten really good examples. The Marin County website has some good examples.
Yeah. Fran writes, how does one set up a Firewise community in the county area? Well, if you're in Sonoma County, reach out to us. We're the designated Firewise regional coordinator for Sonoma County. Currently, we have 31 Firewise communities in good standing. We've got a bunch in the hopper, and we've got one that probably we're going to submit in about 2 weeks that will be our 32nd Firewise community in Sonoma County. So
That's great. That's great.
Iris and the folks out of Oakmont were the original pioneers, but then Fire Safe Sonoma eventually caught on, and that's where we spend a lot of our time and resources lately with helping people, become Firewise communities in good standing.
Good.
Susie writes, did Oakmont already allow metal gates, or did you have to overcome resistance to change?
Oh, you're talking about resistance. If you'd be talking to a lot of grandmothers and grandfathers, you're going to get big, big resistance. However, I think that, one of the things I think we got more accomplished because of the 2020 fire than the 2017, because people thought 2017 was a one-off, and it's not. And when 2020 came, it's like, okay, then the board was accepting I mean, still they were dragging their feet, but accepting of a new landscape policy that we got the architectural committee to do. And it was a compromise so that we wouldn't get run out of town. But it's still better than not having any, and it's not as severe as what's going to be required in the next 1, 2, 3 years. And I hate to see people waste money putting money into plants around their house, 5 foot zone, knowing that they're going to have to rip them out.
Yeah, if they're there in the ground, but I'm not sure about what IBHS is going to ask for a
Yeah.
wildfire prepared home, but the regulations coming down the path here for California for homes in high and very high fire severity zone is basically going to say no plants in the 0 to 5 unless they're a potted plant in a pot that is non-combustible, basically ceramic,
And you
terracotta.
can only have 10 of those, and they can only be 18 inches high in terms of the plant. But
And
IBHS is requiring absolutely 0 to 5, no wood. The
yeah,
only, the
yeah.
only, that's
And the,
just,
and the largest you could have is 5 gallon. The pot cannot be bigger than a 5 gallon pot.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and
I
so,
mean, everybody is agreeing that there can be no plants in the 0 to 5, and you're going to feel it either this year or next year.
yeah. Marilyn writes, would you recommend that people look at non-combustible fencing within 10 feet of structures? Yeah, if you
Yeah.
can get 10 feet and you can afford it and you like it, you can live with it. Definitely.
Yeah.
Everything that anybody does,
Mhm.
regardless of the regulations,
Yeah.
to resist wildfire, reduces the risk overall. Every little thing you do
And
reduces the risk. You'll
I'd
never
like
get it to zero.
I'd like to add to that is that some insurance companies and other people have been figuring out that well, for instance, let's say you have a 3 foot gate and you have a 2 foot section, and then the fence turns. 5 foot makes sense. If you have a 3 foot gate and then you've got 6 feet before the turn, it makes sense to do all of that in metal and
Yeah.
not have this weird seam.
Little odd section. Yeah.
Yeah, but the other thing is people are kind of, if the 5 foot 0 to 5 hasn't legally been defined yet, we just made it surmised based on what they have been
Yep.
following, and they could go further. You might want to go an extra 2 feet to be at least
Yeah,
7.
it's not. It'll be
I'm talking
5
about the
feet.
fence.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
five.
it's nearly in final committee
Yeah,
form.
yeah,
I'm expecting it to go into law. It's signed into law by
5 feet.
Governor
Yeah, yeah,
Newsom the first of the year.
yep,
There's a
yeah,
little pushback right now in some of the committees because of an article that came out that really was a
yeah,
poorly written article, basically
yeah,
inciting fear where there didn't need to be. Anyway,
yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Um,
has a rule right now for it can be non, that will probably change in the future because of what the insurance companies are requiring. And yeah.
yeah, another thing with fences, like we were doing a presentation, I think last weekend to a community out West County. And we were looking at the fence and we're like, wow, this is wood right next to your structure. So the group started brainstorming how to deal with that and not change the overall look, feel, architecture of that,
Mhm,
piece of the house.
mhm.
And where we landed was, heck, your 1x6 boards that are on there, you could replace the stringers, the wood 2x4 stringers with metal studs, and then you can replace the boards with hardy board,
Right, right,
and then you can paint it to match,
right.
and you would not even be able to tell
Yeah,
that it was a chunk of non-combustible fence. Like,
that's right. That's
and
right.
when we kind of landed on that after a little,
Yeah.
group brainstorming session, I'm like, man, that was brilliant.
Yeah.
I would have just said, oh, throw some corrugated metal in there and call it good. But yeah, we don't want that. We want it to look the same. Okay.
Right,
Let's
right.
figure this out. And we did.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, David writes, what do you think about dealing with the paradox of the Insurance Institute, IBHS, setting a standard, but there's still no guarantee if you do everything required that you'll still be able to get retained coverage. Yeah, I'm kind of in that camp where until California and other states come up with a universal standard for insurance companies to use and follow, which I don't see happening in my lifetime, it's going to still continue to be all over the map. The insurance companies are independent businesses. They can use whatever models they feel work for them to assess their risk and how much risk they want to carry. Iris, do you want to? What are
Yeah,
your thoughts on that?
well, I think that when there starts to be a confluence of agreement,
Yeah,
when PG&E, IBHS, California comes up with 0 to 5, you should have no, metal gates and fence, then I think that's where it's going to land. I mean, when you have that overlap that is consistent.
yeah. Well, we have to leave it there. I was just reminded that it is time.
Yeah.
And fire safety, we have a meeting, a very important meeting right after this one. So I am
Well,
going to wrap it up. I think that is all the questions. So
thank you very
thanks, you
much.
guys. Stay tuned for our next speaker series for next month. And also remember to register for the July speaker series. Thank you, Iris, so much for the presentation. I can't wait to, share it with other folks who weren't able to make it. Really
you, Rebecca.
valuable information and worthwhile. And thank you guys all for coming, watching the show. Appreciate that. And yeah, thanks Team Fire Safe Sonoma for making, with the effort that goes into making these a reality. Couldn't do it alone. There's no way I could do this alone. All right. Thank you guys. We're going to sign off and we'll see you next month.